Happy Mother's Day. This is another edition of Lessons from My Dogs, but this is a special edition. This is a Mother's Day edition of Lessons from My Dogs. And this one is not going to be about really a specific dog as much as it is just in general talking about the dogs that we had growing up as long as I lived in my home at 1403 Bates Drive in Pascagoula. As you can see, I'm outside and you may actually hear Abe, the yellow lab, as he's behind me and has decided he's going to roll around and make all kinds of crazy noises. But I'm outside for a very important reason. You see, there were some things that were true about the home that I grew up in, at least the home that I grew up in after about the age of 4. Dad built the house that I grew up in. I don't really remember the house we lived in before then. And there were two things that were true about it. One was, until all the kids were gone, that yard at the end of that cul-de-sac was not big enough for a riding mower. But the first summer that I wasn't there anymore as the youngest child, it suddenly became big enough for a riding mower. The interesting thing also was that we never had dogs inside. Mom would give in and let us get dogs. You've heard me talk about having to pout to be able to get Charlie. But she really did not want dogs inside. She would make exceptions. When I was sick, she would let my dog come in with me. She discovered that it was much easier for me to be woken up if the dog did it instead of one of my sisters, and so she would allow that to happen. But why in the world would Mom not want a dog inside? I really saw the truth of it after all the kids were gone and it was just her and Dad, and suddenly it was okay for a dog to be inside. You see, Mom was just like a lot of other moms. She did not want another mouth to feed, another person to clean up after. She didn't want that extra work. And that was because she worked really hard. That was the reason suddenly it was okay to have a dog inside after that, after the kids were gone. As we think about Mother's Day, I want us to think about how hard our moms work and how special their lives are. And we always think about Proverbs chapter 31, but I want to point out just a couple verses from Proverbs 31. It says, her mouth speaks wisdom. This is verse 26. Her mouth speaks wisdom, and loving instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the activities of her household. Boy, was that not ever true? Now, my mom had a lot of wisdom. My mom gave a lot of good advice. Sometimes she just talked way too much, just because that was her. But what she said always came with the right motive. And then it says loving instruction is on her tongue. That's what it's really talking about there, is we always knew, at least I always knew, that my dogs were always gonna love me and that my mama was always gonna love me. It matters so much more what we say to people when they know that we love them. It says she watches over the activities of her household. Boy, did she ever. She didn't need Life 360. She didn't need any of those techniques that we have nowadays to try to keep track of each other. She just somehow managed to do it with a telephone with no call waiting and a calendar that hung next to that telephone. But the last part of verse 27 says, and is never idle, never stopped. Mom had a lot of nervous energy, kind of like a puppy almost. but she was always going to push through. Why? Because that's what moms do. She never really had much time for herself. I can remember thinking how strange it was that Mom would save old newspapers until she got a chance to read them, and by the time she got a chance to read them, after she had, stored them away somewhere, she maybe 2 weeks reading through the newspaper. 2 weeks late reading through the newspaper. So, why am I telling you all that? It's just because when I think about a dog being inside or a dog being outside, it makes me think about moms, and it makes me think about the energy that they give to our lives, the love that they give, the instruction that they give. And as great as that love is, God's love is even greater. God's instruction is even greater. And God truly never gets weary. For all you moms out there, I pray that this is the best Mother's Day that you ever have had. I pray that you feel appreciated and loved and blessed, and that God meets every need that you have. Have a great Mother's Day.